everyone's voice is heard during public meetings. In an effort to preserve order and decorum, here are a few rules and guidelines we ask everyone to follow during the meeting. You may bring signs and similar items into the council chambers, but these items may not be held above shoulder height or otherwise obstruct the view or block the path of members of the audience. Disruptions impact the flow of discussion, potentially intimidate others, and detract from the purposes of the meeting. Therefore, disruptive behavior, including, but not limited to, cheering, shouting, booing, or the use of profanity is prohibited. Applause is only permissible during the presentations and proclamations portion of the agenda. Threats directed toward any individual or group are prohibited. Speakers may not campaign or advocate for or against candidates for office or ballot issues or otherwise attempt to influence the outcomes of elections. A full list of meeting rules is displayed at the entrance of the council chambers. During the public hearing portion of the agenda and during communications from citizens, when your name is called, please come forward to the podium. Then state your name, your town of residence, and begin speaking. Remarks shall be limited to 3 minutes. Citizens who are at the meeting and wish to donate their time to a single speaker must fill out an individual card and then combine their speaker cards. In such an event, one person from the group shall be designated to present their remarks, which shall be limited to 6 minutes. If one speaker is speaking on behalf of others who are present, the mayor or vice mayor shall read into the record the names of those whose time is combined. No person other than the individual speaking shall enter into the discussion. Officials on the dais may not respond to any questions or comments during communications from citizens. However, the council may ask questions during public hearing items. All comments and questions shall be directed through the mayor or presiding officer. Thank you again for attending a Gilbert Town meeting and for your participation in local government.
Good evening. Welcome to the December 3rd, 2024 Gilbert Town Council meeting. As a reminder to please turn off or silence your cell phones, Councilmember Torgerson, and devices. I have to call them out. I think I have PTSD from Stairway to Heaven. Smoke on the Water, excuse me. We'll begin our evening tonight with a call to order. If the town clerk could please conduct the roll call.
Mayor Bridget Peterson.
Here.
Vice Mayor Scott Anderson.
Here.
Councilmember Chuck Bongiovanni.
Here.
Councilmember Bobby Buckley.
Here.
Councilmember Jan Kaprowski. Here. Councilmember Kathy Tilkey.
Here.
And Councilmember Jim Torgerson.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you, Chevalier. I started with a roll call just so that we could point out that Councilmember Buckley is virtual tonight. Any votes that we do this evening have to be voice vote and not use our electronic voting since we have one member virtually. We'll start with our invocation. If Associate Pastor Adriana Hernandez of the First Methodist Church is here, good evening. You'll just push the button. I think that there's an arrow maybe or a dot or something that shows you which button to push. There you go. It lights up.
I mastered it.
Thank you.
Thank you. As we gather this evening, may we carry forward our hearts that have been filled with gratitude over the last few days. May our discussions be guided by wisdom, compassion, and a deep commitment to the well-being of the town of Gilbert. Grant us the strength to listen attentively to diverse perspectives, to seek common ground, and to make the decisions that reflect kind, productive, and meaningful work. We offer this invocation with open hearts and minds, seeking to honor the responsibility entrusted to us. As leaders this evening, we humbly ask the divine for wisdom and guidance. Praise be to God.
Thank you, Pastor. That was lovely. We appreciate you coming out this evening and sharing an invocation with us. Next, we'll have a Pledge of Allegiance led by Councilmember Bongiovanni.
I pledge allegiance to the flag
The first thing on our agenda this evening is recognition of Whitney Connor, as Volunteer of the Year. I'm going to read something before I come down to the floor. Teens like those serving our community in the Mayor's Youth Advisory Committee and beyond are having a profoundly positive impact on this community, and I'm thrilled to highlight another example of a teen leader. Whitney Connor is a Perry High School senior honors student who, at the age of 17, already makes a difference in our community. She maintains a 4.5 GPA and is busy as a member of the National Honor Society, the high school varsity cheer squad, I think she's missing practice tonight, and is an AIA varsity scholar athlete, but her true passion lies in volunteering and serving her community. She learned the joy that comes from serving others before starting kindergarten, as 12 years ago she began participating in the Gilbert Fire and Rescue's annual back-to-school shopping event. Each year, Whitney joins her father in participating in this amazing program that provides Gilbert Public Schools deserving students with new clothes and shoes. Over 2 years ago, Whitney believed she could do more, and so she founded a nonprofit organization called Bands for Backpacks that has helped her raise more funds for the back-to-school shopping program. To date, she's raised and donated over $3,000 to Gilbert Fire and Rescue's annual event to allow more children in need to participate. Whitney's unwavering dedication to this community and her servant's heart make her the truly deserving candidate for the Gilbert Chamber of Commerce's 2024 Mayor's Volunteer of the Year Award. Whitney, could you please come down and join me in the front? So typically when we do the Community of Excellence Awards, we don't then bring them back here to the council chambers. But I was scheduled to be out of town this year for the Community of Excellence Awards, so I had asked Whitney to please come to a council meeting to be recognized. And I thought, heck, I'm going to do it anyway, even though I was there for the awards ceremony this year. But I just wanted to give you an opportunity to say a few words if you'd like to, Whitney.
So like she said, I've been volunteering at the event since I was really little, and my goal this year for this event that happened in August was to be able to take more kids, and also every year kids come from families and they bring their brothers or their sisters, and there's not always enough funding to shop for them like we'd like to, but obviously they're in the same situation. So my goal was to raise money to be able to take more student shopping and just to make a difference in more kids' lives.
Thanks, Whitney. We should be so proud of students like this that we have in our community. Let's give her a big round of applause. And I'm going to say that her dad was or still is sort of a Gilbert Fire PIO for the town of Gilbert, which is a public information officer. And I watched Fox 10 walk into that event in August. Mom was there, Dad was there. And I watched this young lady go live on Fox 10, and she spoke better than most of the adults I see speak on live TV. So she has got that gene, and I told her that 11 years ago, I won this award. So there's big things in her future. Mom and Dad, want to come join us? Dad's deputy chief with the Gilbert Fire Department. And unbeknownst to me, I picked Whitney as Volunteer of the Year, and our Gilbert Fire Chief picked Chief Mike Connor as the Tim Dorn Public Safety Award winner this year. So we had two Connors being awarded that evening. Thank you. Thanks. Congratulations. Next on our agenda, we are moving to our public hearing items. My pages are stuck together. We have 4 items on our public hearing agenda this evening. 3 zoning items and a fees discussion. I'm going to open the public hearing. I had asked if staff could do a short discussion presentation on the 3 zoning items. We will need to do a vote on those separately, and then we'll open up public hearing for the fees discussion also. So can I have someone from staff to discuss the 3 zoning items? We discussed these at a study session, but I think it would be a good idea to have them here at a public meeting. Just a short snippet.
Mayor, council, if I may, item 2 is being continued.
Oh.
Request has been continued to December 17th.
Oh, thank you. Sorry, I didn't read that agenda change over here. So I will make a motion, I will close the public hearing on item 2. I will make a motion to continue item 2Z 24-05 to the December 17th meeting.
Second.
I have a motion by the mayor, seconded by the vice mayor. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Sorry, aye.
Motion passes 7-0. Open the public hearing for items 3 and 4, which is Z 24-09 and Z 24-13. Kyle?
Mayor, Council, good evening. Items 3 and 4 you've seen in a study session, and they are House Bill 2297 and Senate Bill 1162. These were passed this summer and signed into law, and because of the action that the legislators took, we are making some changes to our land development code in order to be in compliance with those different House bills and Senate bills. So those are what's coming before you tonight. One is an adaptive reuse, and the other one is essentially a stop clock. It's timeframes for residential development upon which we have to return comments and when the projects will be approved according to the timeline set out in the Senate bill.
Thank you, Kyle.
Sure.
Any questions or comments? I think the most important part that Kyle said there is that these were bills that were passed by the state legislature and signed into law by the governor, and they are amendments to our code that we have to make because of the bills that were passed. And we did have a lengthy discussion at a couple of study sessions on these items, and I'm getting them all confused because there's 3 or 4 of them at this point. And so we've had multiple discussions on some and back to finally approve these at this point. They've been through the Planning Commission and now back to council for final approval.
Correct.
Councilmember Torgerson?
I just wanted to point out, and Kyle, if you could help us a little bit, on zoning Z 24-09, the adaptive reuse, how much say does the town have in the reuse of commercial as multifamily?
Mayor, Councilmember Torgerson, the bill allows the town to designate up to 10% or designate 10% of the existing commercial office and mixed-use buildings within the town as eligible. So we performed an analysis of how many of these buildings are existing. There's 854. So we do have some ability to say that up to 85 buildings would be eligible for adaptive reuse under this bill. However, there are certain criteria that have to be met in order for them to maintain their eligibility to proceed with the adaptive reuse.
But it's not something we deny. If they meet the benchmark the state has presented, we have to let them do what they're going to do, correct?
Mayor, Councilmember Torgerson, that's correct. The adaptive reuse is allowed without requiring a use permit or rezoning or any public hearing or really any public input. We still do have the ability to review a site plan at a staff level, so we still have the ability to review for site planning type of items.
Well, another check for our state legislature. Thank you.
It's exactly why I wanted to pull them off separately so that we could have them a little more discussion so that the public can hear this. I know people don't necessarily watch our study sessions. Now, Veronica, when you say adaptive reuse, they would be able to take commercial buildings and use them for what?
Mayor, the adaptive reuse is for them to take one building and repurpose it for another use. As it applies to this particular bill, they can do multifamily or some other type of use that would be allowed under the underlying zoning for that building.
Thank you. I think the key words there were multifamily, and this legislation was passed to increase the ability for developers to create more multifamily within the state of Arizona.
Mary, you're correct. This was one of a series of bills that was adopted by the legislature this past session that was intended to address the housing issue.
Yes, even though there's like 150,000 permits out there waiting to be built, and they're not built yet, but we're behind because we're cities and towns. Thank you both. I'm being sarcastic. Thank you both. Appreciate it. Any other comments? Oh, Vice Mayor?
I was just going to say, when we have the minutes come out, what you just said, please underscore it.
Oh, what I just said? Please underscore it. Did you get that, Chevelle? I was being sarcastic, but very truthful at the same time. It's the state legislature is forcing cities and towns to create these zoning opportunities within our communities, and whether it fits the area or not, we're going to be forced to be able to have to put those in. Councilmember Torgerson was trying to get across the point that the council will not be able to say no to these things, and Veronica laid out that a site plan will come in just to staff for them to approve, but it won't go through any kind of a public process that you see here, so the public and the council will not have any say on this.
That is correct.
Yep. And this is one of 4 bills? 4 bills?
3 or 4?
Yeah, I've lost track, like I said. Yeah. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll close the public hearing and bring it back to the council for motions on item 3 and number 4, zoning Z24-09 and Z24-13.
Mayor, nobody wants to do this, but I will make the motion to accept items number 3 and 4.
Thank you.
I'll second.
I have a motion by Councilmember Tilke, seconded by Councilmember Kaprowski. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes 7-0. Sorry, we got out of one of our council members. You can see how thrilled we all are by this legislative action that we're having to deal with. Next on our agenda, I will open the public hearing for item number 5, which is a fees discussion. We're going to have a presentation from staff. I hope it is a Reader's Digest version of what we saw at the retreat, because that was quite lengthy, and I'll be looking forward to some conversations. Good evening, Eric.
Good evening, Mayor.
No pressure, Eric.
I pushed the button. Let's try this again. There we go. Almost there. Here we are. Well, good evening, Mayor and Council. Tonight's presentation will be a Reader's Digest version of the trilogy that I shared with you a few weeks ago. It is in the public's benefit that they do hear much of that information that was shared with you and the hard work that Council has already begun on the review of these rates. Our overarching goal tonight is to keep the high-performing infrastructure that supports our community's way of life. There is work to be done to correct insufficient past investments in the maintenance and rehabilitation of the systems that allow us to enjoy quality services. If we don't follow through on this commitment to our community, then degradation, extreme incidents of service failures, and exponential emergency costs will be the future for Gilbert, as we have seen happen in numerous communities across the country. Our City of the Future initiative compels us to navigate a different direction than others have taken so that Gilbert does not decline, but can remain a fertile community for the flourishment of our residents and businesses. Tonight, we're going to review the operating and repair and replacement plans. Our request is for council to select a rate option to meet the financial needs of the utility, to set the public hearing for February 11th and publish a notice of intent. And there is a contingency request for additional outreach services as requested by the council. We have to come face to face with the reality that is before us. Some parts of our sewer infrastructure are silently crumbling and are near total collapse. The condition of our infrastructure and maintaining reliable service is the underpinning of this entire conversation. We have 3 500-foot sections of ductile iron pipe that cross under the 202 freeway. This one is highlighted just north of Williamsfield Road. Although our goal is to inspect the entire system every 6 years, it has been 8 years since this inspection on these pipes, and what we found last month was alarming. These dark spots in the pipes are holes where the iron pipe has corroded completely away. Ductile iron pipe was a best practice 20 years ago when these lines were installed, but are not anymore due to its corrosion potential. This gravity line is inside a 24-inch steel casing that has concrete plugs at both ends, which should help to keep sewage that may be leaking out of the pipe contained and prevent a sinkhole. But we don't know the extent of corrosion the casing may have. Our team has just completed camera inspections of all 3 pipes and are actively pursuing emergency relining. We've also expanded this inspection to any other potential gravity ductile iron pipe and are already finding other significant issues. Catching this failure, before a failure, shows the value of our routine inspections. Although these repairs will be costly in the several $million range, a sinkhole in the freeway would be life-threatening.
Can I interrupt you for a second? Because I've been having nightmares about this video. First of all, it gives me motion sickness, so I have to stop looking at it. But this pipe was put in 2005. I just want to clarify. This pipe was put in 2005. This video is from 2024.
Yes.
When was the last time that this pipe was inspected before October 30th, 2024?
It was in 2016.
So 8 years ago, and the pipe didn't look like this 8 years ago.
Correct.
But essentially, this pipe is 20 years old. Mm-hmm. What was the manufacturer's timeline for a pipe like this at the time that it was installed in 2005?
They should have lived 40 to 50 years.
So we're getting half as much of, maybe even less than half as much of lifeline from this pipe that we should have. Okay. The numbers kept going over in my head as to what you were showing us and what it said on the screen, and it wasn't sitting right, so I wanted to ask the questions.
Yeah.
Thank you, Eric.
Yes, thank you. Now, this problem is not a Gilbert alone problem. There's an infrastructure funding gap that is national in scope. Every 4 years, the EPA sends Congress a report on infrastructure funding needs for clean water utilities, which are synonymous with sanitary sewers and storm sewers. The EPA provided their very low estimate of $630 billion of investment needed over the next 20 years nationwide just to bring these systems back into acceptable range for functionality. Arizona's share of that is $4.8 billion. So this problem is not unique to Gilbert, but we are aggressive in keeping our promise to our community for quality service, which is why we deal with our funding needs head-on instead of passing them to future generations. Now, oftentimes, when you make a personal or professional or a team goal, you focus on what you want to become. And we definitely do that in Gilbert with our City of the Future metrics and our performance management program. But sometimes it's more instructional to look at real-world examples of what you don't want to become to help guide your decision-making on the path you do want to take. Johnson Utilities was just a few miles southeast of us in the Santan Valley, and they were plagued with sewer overflows, undrinkable water, and high utility bills for many years. Finally, the state took regulatory action and forced the sale of the utility to another private company, EPCOR, which is making significant investments to bring the infrastructure up to standards. Sewage running through backyards and washes is not what we want to become. We will retrace the path that you have already trodden to discover our pains as well as our plans to making sure we're a reliable and environmentally stable sewer and reclaimed water utility. For our community members watching, it's foundational to understand that the Town Council has adopted through unanimous resolution a policy statement regarding user fees. The Wastewater Fund and the Environmental Compliance Fund are what we call enterprise funds. This means that user fees need to be collected to recover the entire cost of operations. This also means that as a financial practice, we do not subsidize these utilities. Rates are how we fund critical wastewater infrastructure and services. Utilities are separate financial entities under the Gilbert umbrella. They operate independently financially and are not subsidized and do not subsidize the tax rate. Adequate fund balances are maintained to allow Gilbert to continue to provide services to the community in case of emergencies or economic downturns. Following these policies is a key reason that Gilbert is rated AAA in our bonds. There are less than 50 communities in the country rated AAA on their bonds, and Gilbert's one of them. This elite rating ensures that Gilbert can secure the best interest rates when bonding. And if we stop following those policies or take actions that indicate we might have difficulty repaying those bonds, like not having enough revenue or taking one-time evasive actions, then it could impact our ratings and the interest we pay on future bond issuances or refinancing of existing debt. Those consequences will spill over into other plans that Gilbert has, like the transportation bonds and others. Another very important financial policy adopted by the council has to do with our minimum unrestricted fund balance. The fund balance is an important indicator of Gilbert's financial position, and maintaining those reserves is considered prudent management practice. Adequate fund balances are maintained to allow Gilbert to continue providing services to the community in case of unexpected emergencies or economic downturns. There are consequences to not following those policies. This discussion can feel very academic, but it has real-world implications on our community. We have to look no further than the news from last month in Chicago, where the city council is attempting to sidestep hard financial choices, and credit rating agencies are sounding the alarm. Lower credit rating affects our ability to build projects with frugality. Bringing this kind of closer into focus with a personal anecdote, consider that the average home price in Gilbert is about $600,000. If you were to purchase that home with a very good credit score of about 780, that would cost about $3,000 a month in principal and interest. A person with an average credit score of 620 would pay $3,400 a month, 13% higher, because of their downgraded credit rating. The same effect is felt in our borrowing costs if our credit rating changes. An increase in interest rates due to downgrading our AAA rating just one step would cost an extra $1.5 to $3 million for every $100 million borrowed. That's why we've worked so hard to achieve and protect that rating. Now, why are we talking about the rate process again? Well, each year we develop and review budgets for all 4 of our utilities: water, wastewater, environmental compliance, and solid waste and recycling, but only request or make revenue adjustments for 2 of them each year, if needed. This year, the revenue adjustments are being reviewed for wastewater and environmental compliance. It should be noted that although these alternating review years are planned, it doesn't mean that staff will bring forward a rate increase recommendation each time. Only when we have financial needs of the utility will we bring forward rate requests. Now, we're in the middle of this annual cycle to review and adjust rate revenue. We kicked off the outward-facing process with the Public Works Advisory Board, which is the council-appointed advisory group of Gilbert residents that explores public works-related policy, rates, and projects to ensure continuity of services. It was created to infuse the citizens' voice into this process. They have explored the services and projects in depth over the last few months, leading to a rate recommendation that will be presented to you again later. You've already received a much more lengthy version of this presentation and had a robust discussion at the retreat last month, and we're now in the statutorily required public noticing period, with several actions still ahead of us, both for educating the public and for official action. Now, on to the first rate recommendation. As I mentioned, environmental compliance is one of the 2 utilities up for review this year. Our first recommendation is that this fund does not need a rate increase at this time. Our main takeaway is that we're on budget, and we have a plan for the outer years that on these graphs look like they don't balance. There's a couple of large CIP projects in the last 2 years, which are currently with a limited scope availability, tagged only to the operating fund. As we get closer, we know that at least portions of these projects will be split into the repair and replacement fund, and that will help bring the operating fund more in alignment. I'm waiting for the round of applause, but I didn't get it. Okay. Tough crowd tonight. Okay. Now, on to wastewater. We're going to revisit the journey through the sewer system and the reuse system to understand what goes into uninterrupted service and how our 53 wastewater staff manage this $1 billion in infrastructure. We previously discussed the maintenance activities within the gravity sewer system. The cleaning and inspection work we do helps mitigate highly corrosive sewer gases that eat away at the infrastructure from the inside and are a nuisance for the community. Inspections help us identify small issues before they become big, like that bottom photo. And sometimes they uncover big issues before they become catastrophes, like in the video we just saw. They also help us identify future problem areas that can be corrected with capital projects, like in the case of our manhole rehabilitation project, which will fix hundreds of compromised manholes, and new odor and corrosion control stations in response to the odor complaints we've received. Our plan includes additional staffing to maintain these new stations, which will be proactive care for the pipes and a quality of life improvement for the community. Lift stations serve a vital function in our system. This is our largest lift station, Crossroads. You can see the very large pumps and the force main pipe that lifts the sewage where it can be pushed into a gravity sewer line to continue its journey to a water reclamation facility. The map on the right highlights the lift station sewer sheds in Gilbert, where over 60% of our sewer flow passes through at least one lift station on its path to the plant, which is one indicator of how vital lift stations are to uninterrupted service. Lift stations are costly to run and maintain, especially compared to gravity sewer lines, which is why we try to avoid them at all costs in new developments. Breakdowns are a normal type of this infrastructure, which is why our team does daily inspections and maintenance on the equipment, which helps us identify potential issues before they become calamitous. Yet we have had those calamities. We've had numerous failures of these force mains in the last decade. These are going to show up on the map. The first one was at Greenfield and Queen Creek in 2015. This cost us $2 million in emergency repairs. It likely would have only cost us about $300,000 to fix if that was not an emergency. In all, these 6 emergencies cost $18 million to fix. And that didn't even solve the underlying issues that led to the breaks in the first place. Those were $18 million in Band-Aids. Why do we pay such close attention to lift stations and force mains? It's because the enormous impact that they can have when they break down. Since sewage generally only has one path to follow to a reclamation facility, these excavations of a few of the major force main failures show what those pipes look like after they've failed, but not the havoc and the damage to the surface. These pipe fragments at the bottom of the photo, in the bottom photos, were actually still in service this year when our team proactively discovered their poor condition during an inspection. These findings were deeply concerning because we have a responsibility to keep the service running, and this condition of pipes is a harbinger of collapse. Had they not noticed this, we surely would have had another force main emergency. There's also the above-ground impact that happens when these force mains break. Because our sewage, again, only flows one way, we have to set up bypass pumping in cases where ruptures are big enough and complicated enough that the repair will take some time. In this case, the bypass pipes were in place for several months crossing McQueen Road. Rivers and ponds of raw sewage running through gutters and into landscaped areas are not the kind of water features we want in Gilbert, and we know that our residents want to prevent those as well. These rate investments will help keep us on the correct side of our residents' desires for quality of life. And yet, we've had these catastrophic problems, and the media loves it when we have them because those sinkholes are a strong visualization of what's happened. Thankfully, nobody was injured in this incident, but it was a very strong possibility. This particular incident led us to a condition assessment of our force mains, and we developed a prioritization list for rehab and resiliency of those force mains and a subsequent capital project to make the necessary improvements. It's a costly but vital series of projects over the course of 12 years to accomplish resiliency and reliability for our sewer customers. We're also planning to add 2 lift station technicians in 2026 in order to keep up with the maintenance required on these important facilities that keep the sewage flowing efficiently and will not cause environmental damage or health consequences. WW1050 is that systematic replacement of the ductile iron pipe force mains that are most likely to fail. Ductile iron was industry standard at the time that they were installed, but improvements in manufacturing technology in larger diameter plastic pipes now means that the old standard has changed to these inert materials, which will not corrode like ductile iron. Because those force mains are that single point of failure and there's no backup in place if one of these fail, we will be in emergency operations again if they do fail, when they do fail. The red lines on the map are the areas planned for rehab under this project. It is $12 million a year for each of the next 12 plus years in order to accomplish this. And although it's expensive, it's the likely continued failure of those pipes coupled with the single point of failure makes this an important priority for wastewater service. We also drilled down into the operations of the Greenfield Water Reclamation Plant and that operations and maintenance costs over the next 5 years average $3.5 million per year above our previously budgeted amounts. This is due to many contributing factors, including increased costs for chemicals, energy, and materials for the processes, growth in Gilbert's flow to the plant, and higher staffing costs. We keep reinvesting in the plant so that we get the full useful life out of this facility to maximize our ratepayers' return on their investment. These upward costs affect our need for more revenue per customer. We also discussed the reinvestment that is ongoing at the Neely Water Reclamation Facility and the need to bring that plant back in line with the service standard the community has come to rely on. And lastly, our reuse system, which is the foundational element of our sustainable water supply. Our goal of 100% reuse of water is achieved through direct use in parks, golf courses, and HOA common areas, and the recharge of the remaining reclaimed water into the aquifer. We've got that separate pipeline network for this water, which we call our purple pipe network because those pipes are purple, and that helps delineate them from the drinking water pipes. The riparian preserve is a vital resource for our community sustainability, enabling that full use of our reclaimed water by recharging that water into the aquifer and helping us maintain equilibrium with our groundwater pumping. The facility is undersized, and our need to increase that capacity was first identified in 2012, and we developed a project to do that. But it has been on hold ever since due to budget constraints. It's a critical project for the maximum use of our existing water resources. And using the existing water that we have is vitally important, especially as we face a reduction of our CAP supplies due to the Colorado River situation. So, in our 5-year capital improvement plan, we have 2 types of capital plans that are funded by rates. The first is the operations plan, capital plan. And you think of an odor and corrosion control facility that is not included in the original construction. That's our operating capital. On the repair and replacement plan, you think of an existing lift station pump that needs replaced because it's breaking down beyond repair. Now remember that growth-related projects are not funded by rates. Therefore, we're not discussing growth-related projects tonight. These are the lists of our capital projects and the years that they were slated to begin. Notice that our 5-year plan, as originally constituted, had most of the projects planned in fiscal year 25 and 26. This is a visualization of what a backlog looks like in a plan. Many of these projects were planned for fiscal 23 and 24 in the last rate plan, but when it came time for council to adopt the rates, at this precise time, we had received new information that the incredible inflationary environment surrounding construction and operating costs had eaten away at nearly all of the additional revenue that the rate increase was going to gain for us. We had to use that revenue just to keep the utility running and had to push almost all of those projects off for 2 years, which were then added to the ones that were already planned in those years. This glut of projects creates a real financial bump in the near term. And that financial bump would have had a direct customer bill impact. So we have smoothed out many of those projects in order to also smooth out the financial impact to our customers. We had to consider the risk of pushing off these critical projects, which we tried to balance with the customer impacts, both on the monthly bills, but also the risk of interrupted service and the environmental damage potential. That smoothing out represents a $38 million delay of projects in the operating fund and $96 million of delayed repairs and replacements, just to make this rate increase smoother. If these delays were not incorporated, the rate recommendations would have been even higher. The initial capital plan needs represented a 160% rate increase. We've left as much of that plan on the cutting room floor as possible through our risk-benefit process to get the lower increased options before you today. Now, I realize that the previous slides had a lot of information and that they could be overwhelming. Looking at those dozens of projects can be difficult to sort through. So visualize it this way. We have 4 main categories of project types in the plan: rehabilitation, corrosion and odor control, service criticality, and efficiency and safety. When you view it through these 4 lenses, it's a little easier to see the goals that we're trying to accomplish. When we add in the bullet list of each of the projects, it provides some context for the criticality of these projects. As an example, we can pick any one of these odor control projects that are planned, and we can look at the 3rd one on the list, the Western Canal Odor Control Site. And the impact for the area nearby and downstream of that site will be enormously improved for the homes around that on the Western Canal, and in the case of the Heritage District that is downstream. These projects that are recommended are based on what we believe is best for the interest of the community, and any projects that would have to be moved out would have severe consequences for service reliability and quality of life. These projects in our 5-year plan total $230 million, averaging $46 million a year. And our current total revenue is only $48 million a year. So clearly an investment is required. The funding options presented to you tonight will fulfill these needs in the presented time frame for projects to start within the managed risk assessment framework. Now, how did we get here? Is probably a question you've asked yourselves a lot. This graph shows the amount of change in a hypothetical $100 sewer bill from 2010 to today. That orange line represents the average sewer rate increase Gilbert made in 4 of the previous 5 years before this timeline started, from 2005 to 2009. This line rises at 5.5% per year, which is actually lower than the national industry standard average of 6% per year. This next line is the actual consumer price index, also known as inflation, during the same time period, which has a representation of your purchasing power. As an example, in 2019, you needed $120 to purchase something that would have cost $100 in 2010. Now we can add on ADOT's construction index, the construction producer index, for just the last 8 years, which shows the hyperinflation that we've seen in the construction industry. This inflation index is an illustration of what has happened to our CIP costs, far outpacing any kind of rate increases. Now let's add on our actual sewer rates over this time period in the blue line, which has always been below both the national average and inflation. This shows that our purchasing power as a utility has actually declined comparatively to actual prices. When you take into account the full amount of rate revenue that we have foregone just in comparison to inflation, we find that we have lost $67 million below our purchasing power, nearly 1.5 years of rate revenue in just the last 14 years. If we did that same exercise for the construction index, we would have lost $133 million in comparison. This illustrates that our investment into the service has not kept pace with the cost of operations or of constructing improvements. But we do have plans to rectify this. As I shared with you at the council retreat, we presented to you 4 options, which at that time you narrowed down to 2 presented to you tonight. The cash option does not require any debt because we collect enough rate revenue to pay cash for for the capital projects. It requires a $29 residential bill increase in April. It does provide the most ongoing funding for projects beyond our 5-year planning horizon. The second option is the phased cash bond mix option, which requires a $110 million bond to fund many of the capital projects. But it allows for a smoother transition to higher rates with an $8 increase in April and a $6 increase the following year. It is likely that this option will require additional increases in outer years of the 5-year plan in order to provide enough funding for projects after the initial 5-year plan. We will come back to these options later for discussion and consideration. Again, showing the residential sewer bill impacts, they range from $8 to $29 in 2024. As a reminder, last spring, Council approved the water rate increases on a 2-year cycle. So we also have the second year of a 3-year plan for water rate increases, which will come into implementation in April. So you can see the full estimated residential bill impacts. I say estimated because water bills are highly variable based on the customer's water use. Sewer bills are a fixed fee. I can tell you with precision what the amount will be for our residential customers. A reminder that the reclaimed water rates are a part of the wastewater fund, and these rates are also recommended for increase on a similar ratio. We have 3 different types of users who have 3 different rates. Now, these reclaimed water rates might seem insignificant, but these users are large, and their bills can add up to tens of thousands of dollars a month. So these bills will be impactful to them. Just as a frame of reference, Gilbert's potable landscape water rate is $4.23 per 1,000 gallons currently. Now, the Public Works Advisory Board went through a lot of work in order to get to a place where they could make a recommendation for you. And at the retreat, we had Sam Elliott come and share, who is the chair of the board, share his reflections on that rate study and the recommendations that they provided. He was planning to be here tonight, but had a family emergency. So he shared with me his notes, and I'm going to read them. These are his words, not mine. He says, "Thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak before you today." He wants to thank the staff and express the board's gratitude to the team that supports the Public Works Advisory Board. Without their efforts and the expertise of that team, the board could not accomplish what they do. Their dedication shines through in the detailed presentations, extensive information, meeting minutes, and countless other resources that they provide to us. We are forever grateful for their support, which ensures that we have the tools and insights needed to make informed decisions for the town of Gilbert. With that said, I'd like to take a moment to explain the thought process that we went through in the Public Works Advisory Board's decision to raise the sewer rates here in the town of Gilbert. At the outset, we evaluated the options based on equity, cost, flexibility, responsibility, sufficiency, practicality, and overall value. Initially, all options appeared practical in addressing our immediate infrastructure needs. However, the stark financial differences between the 2 primary alternatives emerged as the pivotal factors that drove our decision. This decision was not made lightly, and while several factors played a role, two key considerations ultimately shaped the directions we chose: equity and long-term financial responsibility. First, I want to address the 4 options we considered for the rate increase. 3 of the options included the option to issue a bond. Specifically, the full bond would have carried a total of $72 to $89 million in interest, which would have to be paid over the course of 20 years. While the bond could have provided an immediate influx of capital for Gilbert's sewer and reclaim system, the board was deeply concerned about the burden this would place on future generations. The fact is, Gilbert has always prided itself on being proactive, on taking the necessary steps today to ensure that the infrastructure remains strong and sustainable for years to come. Gilbert has a long-standing tradition of not kicking the can down the road when it comes to addressing our town's needs. Taking on this level of debt would have meant that the next generation, which includes many of our children and grandchildren, would be left to pay for the decisions we make today. As stewards of the community, we felt this was not the responsible course of action. We wanted to ensure that we were not passing on a burden to those who would be inheriting the town from us. The second factor that heavily influenced our decision was the funding impact of each option, particularly in terms of the operating and repair and replacement funds. Among the 4 options, Alternative B, which is also called the cash option, stood out as the one that would provide the largest amount of financial support for both crucial areas. With this option, we believe that the town would have a better chance of meeting its needs for the sewer and reclaim system, not just in the short term, but over the next 5 years and beyond. Our primary goal was to give residents the best opportunity to absorb the cost of this rate increase in a way that would provide long-term stability without requiring us to come back in 5 years to raise rates again. Alternative B, the cash option, was the only option that seemed viable in balancing the immediate needs with future sustainability, and the board felt strongly that this was the most responsible path forward. We understand that rate increases are never popular, but we firmly believe that this decision is the most prudent for the town of Gilbert. It provides the necessary funding to ensure our sewer and reclaim infrastructure remains robust, while also avoiding saddling future generations with the burden of excessive debt. We're committed to making decisions that serve the best interests of all residents, both now and in the future. Thank you for your time and attention. We look forward to working together with you to continue making Gilbert a great place to live for generations to come.
Eric, I just want to say thank you to Sam for sending the notes, and hope everything's okay with his family, since you said he had a family emergency.
Yes, thank you. So with that, the recommendations from the Public Works Advisory Board was that there will be, they recommend no change to the environmental compliance fee. They recommend Alternative B, the all-cash option for the sewer and reclaimed water rates, and continuing the pilot utility bill discount program that Council authorized this past spring. Now, we heard from you, Council, at the retreat that you want a robust public outreach campaign. And so I am going to have Candace Kwan, our Chief Digital Officer, come up and present those plans.
Is it Candace's first time at the podium at a council meeting?
It is.
Welcome, Candace.
Mayor and Council, thanks for having me. Candace Kwan again, Chief Digital Officer. As we review tonight's notice of intent for wastewater and sewer, it's only appropriate we talk about the mother of all communication plans for wastewater and sewers. So let's get into it. Oh, I have the clicker.
It's a test.
I didn't use that. I just used the, or you can use the space bar.
Oh, thank you.
Sorry.
No worries, you're okay. Before we get into any type of communications outreach plan, as the communications team, we always remind ourselves of the goal or essential mission, no matter the outreach we're doing, and that is to provide factual, informative, and transparent communication to the community of essential updates that continue to enhance and protect their quality of life. And in order for us to achieve that objective, we need to achieve that goal, we need to achieve the objective for this initiative to develop a really robust communications plan to ensure that Gilbert community is educated and informed on how we've gotten here and why behind the utility rate change or potential utility rate change, and if and when that will take effect. Before we get into kind of the how, it's important for us to look at the Gilbert demographics and be mindful of where they reside and to ensure we effectively communicate any essential information via the channels our residents engage with most. And so here's just a quick snapshot by the numbers that will inform us in the next slide regarding media consumption. But really quickly, I won't go over all of them, but 1/3 is about 25 to 44 years old, 96% of Gilbert households have internet. And so what that helps us understand is their media consumption. And this following chart depicts the preferred media consumption based off of age groups and the preferred categories of media consumption across 4. Digital, which is related to websites, streaming services like Hulu or Netflix, podcasts and apps, social media, which I think we're all very familiar with, Facebook, Instagram, X, etc., traditional, such as TV or radio spots, or even in-person events, and print, which is newspaper, magazines, or even direct mailers. But what this is specifically telling you about Gilbert is their preferred media consumption is in the upper echelon of digital and social, but we can't be remiss to explore other avenues of traditional and print to make sure we are completely reaching our demographics and our community. So with that being said, we're starting to get an understanding of how, but what are we going to be talking about the community to make sure they are informed about this very complex infrastructure of wastewater and sewer. So we've divided that up into 2 categories or 2 phases of communication. The education process is really being transparent with the community on what we must educate the residents on how we've gotten here, how long we've been in this assessment process, what have we done as we've compiled or come together with the Public Works Advisory Board? Answering a lot of questions that I'm sure the community has. Were there any other options explored? And why were these the preferred options? A lot of the information that Eric has shared today, but hopefully in a very digestible component. Not, I know we've tried to digest even more, but that's our job as a communications team to make it even more concise. The second phase is informing the community. How does it directly affect you? Wastewater and sewer is a complex infrastructure that isn't the easiest to explain in 30 seconds or less. So it's our job to inform the community on how wastewater operations affects their everyday needs. So those questions that we could be answering is, what updates and maintenance are essential? How does wastewater affect my daily life? It's not just the toilet flushing, it's the bath water our children are bathing in, it's the water that we are washing our dishes in, and that directly impacts me. What issues will occur if we don't proactively maintain our sewers? And we understand that these rates are, somewhat disruptive, and so we want to make sure they understand any financial resources or support that we can provide them. To that point, we've looked at how and what, and now let's get into specifically some where options. And those where options, based off of that media consumption kind of breakdown, we are exploring so many different platforms and channels. No stone is going unturned, and so you see here, social media, a vast array of options that we're looking at. Our own channels, such as our website, our digital newsroom, our community calendars, Gilbert 311, digital displays, our truck signs on the side of our recycle and trash trucks, and even our utility billing system. And these are our typical areas that we are looking at from communication outreach tactics. But additionally, as you saw in the media consumption, traditional efforts are also important to look at. So we are looking at more print forward, even our good old utility bills, and making sure that maybe we have some area that we can add about the information and potential rate changes. Any types of direct mailers, press releases, even billboards. But what's important to be mindful about for traditional is it is extremely costly. You can see here just an example, mailers, $40,000 to reach all residents. And that's why, as Eric mentioned, we are requesting a contingency budget of $140,000 to account for these types of costly traditional methods. Another caveat to that is traditional is a little inflexible. If you have a grammar error, you can't take it back. So it's something to be mindful of. And also, it's one-way usage. A great thing about digital and social is we're able to retrieve feedback from our community, whereas this direct mailer, we just hope they get it and they understand it. So there's some potential caveats to that. And to that point, there's just some additional examples of content that we would be sharing out to these avenues or channels. The one on the left is a really great way of showing our public workers and the public works and the complex infrastructure that goes into maintaining our infrastructure, and then also the amazing video that Eric continues to share about the eroded pipes. That I'm sure while it's not the best video, it is very transparent in what is so essential for us to continue to maintain this infrastructure and preventing any type of catastrophic events. And that, I think, is it. Any questions, Mayor and Council? I'm happy to answer them.
Thank you, Candace. Any questions for Candace directly? Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mayor. I see a very thorough plan of teaching and telling. I don't see any hearing. Did I miss something about, meaning listening for feedback from our residents? I just see a one-way, this is what it is, this is why. I'm not seeing anything coming the other way.
No, that's a great question, Councilmember Bongiovanni. And that's where we are recommending those channels or avenues such as social media and websites that allow that two-way communication to retrieve that information. So we are essentially showing that we're telling, but we could be asking open-ended questions to the community about their thoughts, feelings, or concerns.
Okay.
Sorry, go ahead.
I know when a developer comes in and they want to do some major changes, they have meetings with residents. I'd like to see that in this plan, where we can hear feedback directly from the residents. Because we haven't asked before about some of the things that we've already raised. And I don't think it's appropriate for us to raise something by as high of a percentage without getting any feedback from the public. And that's something I just can't participate in that unless we do something like that.
Mayor, Councilmember Bongiovanni, I think you're right. We do also, and Eric, correct me if I'm wrong, going to be hosting open houses to allow for community members to come up and ask questions and address any concerns. So I think we are exploring some additional opportunities to make sure that the public has those opportunities to talk with us.
Typically, that's what happens when we did Northwest Corridor. We did open houses. We did open houses for general plan updates. We didn't do it for we even did them for the water rates, yes, because there were open houses, even a virtual one, I believe, or one or two virtual ones too.
That's right.
So there were opportunities for the public to come and speak to staff directly. I remember you sending us tallies on those. Councilmember Torgerson?
You know, the Northwest Corridor, by the way, very successful interaction with the public, extremely successful. And I'm glad to see Gilbert Digital being used for what it's intended for, which is to communicate with our citizens. I am just extremely concerned because it sounds like from this end, not on your end, that it's always a take. We're not showing anything that's been done to mitigate. I saw in Eric's things that there were many years of no rate increase, or as he called it, a insufficient investment in upkeep and being able to go through the pipes, and therefore we find stuff at 6 and 8 years that we could have found maybe at 4 if we had done our job. Not saying that anybody here voted on that, but I'm saying this as an elected official's job. What I really want is that communication, because I sit here and I am still gobsmacked by the whole thing. I know it was mentioned a year ago, but I felt that, I really felt that I was tied to a tree and ready to be shot when they presented our retreat. And I had found out about the 95% increase from the paper, literally from the paper. And it was pronounced that it was done by the public on social media before any of us had seen anything. I was getting nastygrams that night. And education and participation is everything in this. And the general public does not have a large appetite for this. And just telling them won't be enough. There has to be buy-off. There has to be an understanding. If it's to happen, sometimes some people just need to fail. Some people will need to cut their nose off to spite their face because they're too cheap to do it. The guy that won't add the oil to his car because he's cheap blows his car up. And we have those kind of residents here. We do. And I'm not meaning to diminish them because some people can get away without changing their oil for 300,000 miles. That's not been my luck. And I really want to see this public engaged in this. I do not want to have the arguments with people that sit there on ideology and say, no, 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 cut 20% of it, because I don't know if there's 20% that can be delayed further. I'm seeing through this program, there's things over the last decade that were delayed and delayed and delayed because there's no appetite for a rate increase and no appetite for that. And now we're holding the bag with a lot of upkeep. And I want to see Eric come back with whatever he can do to mitigate it. I don't care if it's a dime, a dollar, or it comes net zero. But the education and the participation of this public, at this point, it's absolutely necessary. They've been hit and hit and hit, and I'm not immune from taxes. I'm not immune from fees. And this is your chance to shine. Make people be engaged. It's going to be some funky plumber that comes up with an idea that saves us all $100 million. I can tell you my own business, literally the least intelligent person that worked for me kept me alive in 2008 when everything was going south with an idea. And it was, I bought him a car for it, kind of scary for everybody else on the road, but I bought him a car because he saved me. And he was not, he saw something through the eyes of a babe. And we need our public to be engaged in this in a way that they've never, ever, ever been engaged before, because I feel like all of them, my back's against a wall. I don't even know what to say when I saw all this. So please, you've got a chance to be the rock star here, and I need you to be that rock star today.
Mayor, Councilmember Torgerson, hear you loud and clear in exploring two-way communication and making sure we develop an open forum to really understand the public's expectations, concerns, questions, and innovative ideas that potentially can come through. So hear you on that.
Thanks, Candace. Vice Mayor Anderson.
I think, Candace, the key here is what Councilmember Bongiovanni was getting at, was listening. We had a great deal of success with the subcommittees on teen violence because rather than telling them how we wanted to proceed, we listened and let them tell us where they were upset. Sometimes we agreed, sometimes we disagreed, but we formulated a plan. And I thought it was very successful, but it may not be that important what they say, but they're saying it and they realize somebody's listening and paying attention to them. And sometimes that's all that's needed. Thank you.
So I will say we have a new situation with the Public Works Board. It hasn't been around for very long, but we haven't grasped the fact that it works a lot like our Planning Commission at this point. When the Planning Commission sees a planning case, a zoning case, a rezone, a general plan update, the feedback comes to council right away because it gets advertised on their agenda, or somebody attends one of those meetings, or the press is in the room, and then that feedback comes to council right away no matter what. And that's what happened with the Public Works Board this time, and we're just not used to that at this point in time because they're still so new. This is only, I think, the second really big thing that they have actually reviewed for us. And so it's a different situation, hearing that feedback before it actually comes to council. Jessica Marlowe did send us an email to give us a heads up that the press was in the room and that they heard what the recommendation was from the Public Works Board. So I just wanted to make sure that we put that out there, that the information did come to us. It wasn't an email. Jessica tried to do her best job to say, hey, heads up, this is coming. We know the press was there, and that's what happens when they're in the space. But just learning and dealing with different situations at this point. But it is important to make sure that the public has a place to come and be heard and listen. And I know that the numbers were low when we did the public workshops for the water rates increases last winter. And Northwest Corridor is a unicorn. It's a unicorn. It's demographically, the age group of the people that live there are active and engaged, and so they came out in full force. But this is a completely different situation when it comes to rates like these. So Councilmember Kaprowski has her mic on, and then Councilmember Buckley has a comment too. So Councilmember Kaprowski.
Yeah, thank you for the presentation. I know this is a really heavy and difficult topic, but it is a basic service that we provide, and it's the reason why municipalities exist, to provide water and sewer for our residents and that quality of life that is different from a rural lifestyle. I just want to give great thanks to staff and the Public Works Advisory Board. They invested over 6 hours really diving deep into this topic, and we've already seen that through our retreat and at this meeting, we're investing additional hours, and that's needed to explore the options, to understand the issues. And I think one other component of this is that there are some things that are out of our hands, and that is the unprecedented market volatility that we've seen and the cost escalation, and it's affecting all local governments. The Public Works Advisory Board deliberated and carefully weighed the various options. As a liaison, I was present at those meetings and appreciated their frank conversation and the thoughtful questions and their expertise that they bring, because they work in the industry. And we also had members that are members, just general public, that aren't in the industry. And I thought that was very positive to have them review this. I just want to remind the council that the Public Works Advisory Board recommended to the Town Council Alternative B, the all-cash option, and this option was chosen because it avoids taking on debt, with ratepayers contributing an additional $13 per month above the other options in order to eliminate the need for $72 million in debt interest payments over 20 years. They also believed that the other options were unlikely to sufficiently fund the utility beyond the 5-year plan without necessitating an additional rate increase. So I know this is hard. I think it's hardest because it's layered upon other increases that we've had to make and decisions we've had to make. But ultimately, I understand the communication and trying to get feedback, but another component to this is that what are you going to do with feedback related to wastewater and sewer, in terms of you either provide the service or you don't. The municipality is not making a profit on it. We are using that money to maintain the infrastructure, and the risk is the emergency repair that cost more. I think we've seen that we have some unfortunate lines that were installed with materials that were not inert, and so they're corroding. I know this is really difficult, but this is our job to make this decision, and I'm supportive of the no cash option, or the all cash option, because of the recommendation from the advisory board, and also not carrying additional debt. But I know it's difficult for everyone.
And Councilmember, we're not going to make that decision tonight. We're just going to do the notice of intent and kick off this process. But thank you for sharing. Yeah. It's a great point. I just didn't want anybody to think we're going to be voting on that tonight. So, Councilmember Buckley, you have some comments?
Yes, I do. I actually wanted to, obviously this is a critical infrastructure that we must maintain, we have to maintain in order to keep the quality of life that we all have. And I don't want to repeat a lot of stuff that has been said, but what I do want to do is I want, and you touched on that, Mayor, just a second ago, but I want to clarify and be very solidified in the fact that this is a formal discussion that we're having. No formal vote is being taken tonight. This is a step that moves us forward to do more research, to do more putting the information out that Councilmember Torgerson mentioned to the public and to hear what they have to say. I do believe that the public wants to be involved in this, although I don't see from up here, I don't see very many residents here listening to this. I really wish there had been a great turnout because Eric's presentation was fantastic on the why and the how and why we must go forward and do what we have to do. Like I said, I'm not going to put out if I'm voting for this or if I'm not. I want the additional information and to go forward. It's a difficult decision, and I agree with Councilmember Koprowski that this is our job. This is part of our job, is to maintain our infrastructure and keep it strong. And that is about it for me. But I do want to make sure it is fully understood that we are not voting on this tonight, that the vote will not be until, I believe, it's February 13th.
Councilmember Buckley, I hate to interrupt you and also correct you, but we are voting tonight to kick off the notice of intent so that the staff can move forward with a public campaign. If we don't take that vote this evening, then it's a moot point. We do have to officially vote tonight.
Okay, I'm sorry, and I didn't mean to interrupt you. No, I fully understood that, and I probably should have clarified that we're not voting on the actual, rate. We are voting just to move this forward, which is what I thought I said in the beginning of when I started speaking, was that I wanted to clarify that this is just the formality for moving us forward tonight. The vote is to move us forward to get to the ending vote.
Thank you, Councilmember. Any other comments, Vice Mayor? Sorry, Vice Mayor Anderson.
I was just going to also agree with Councilmember Koprowski. All of that is true, very true, and accurate and factual. But this community has to be heard, and that's whether they agree with the things you were outlining or disagree. They have to feel like they've been heard. That's one lesson we learned from that subcommittee. It really, if they've just been heard, that's the big issue for them.
Any other comments, questions for Eric or Candace as they're standing here patiently at the podium? Oh, Eric has something to add.
Sorry, I'm back. I have like 2 more slides for you.
Oh my gosh,
They're beautiful.
Eric.
They're wonderful. I worked hard on them.
I know you did. I'm just giving you a hard time. I don't have much time left to give you a hard time, so please.
As you all mentioned, the Public Works Board had a tough decision. You all have a tough decision to make. The thing that they kept coming back to were the needs of the utility. So we're going to remind you of what it is that these rate dollars do. They go to the building blocks of our services. They support the proactive maintenance and replacement of the infrastructure that is the foundation of our quality of life. And these dollars help us respond to the emergencies when the infrastructure fails. Without additional funding, we'll lose ground on the proactive maintenance side, and we'll have more frequent and more impactful failures, which will be disruptive to the community and more costly, even in the short term. I've added the estimated residential bill impact on this, and so you can see those comparisons. So in closing, these rate discussions sometimes get sidetracked by percentages or spreadsheets. But I want to provide a reminder of the life impacts that the services and the infrastructure provide for our community, both today and for the next generation. We're able to enjoy parades on our streets and celebrate our Gilbert heritage because those before us have invested in our town, and our responsibility is to keep paying it forward by reinvesting in what they've built so that our kids and grandkids aren't saddled with a crumbling hometown. With that, the request before you tonight is to, for the notice of intent, It sets the maximum amount that council could raise the rate to in February. So you have two options before you in order to accomplish that. We request that you do set that public hearing for February 11th and authorize us to publish that notice of intent and then grant the contingency request for the outreach campaign.
Thanks, Eric. Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Eric, just one quick question. The other option of the $8 and the $6, eventually, let's say 7 years from now, it could be equal to $29, but we'd be stuck with maybe $120 million in interest. My math may be not perfect, but.
That's likely, yes.
Okay. And again, are we voting on a maximum amount, or are we voting on, there is an intent to raise?
Eric just outlined exactly what we would be voting for, which would be to set the date for February 11th for the meeting, for the public hearing meeting, and that the maximum that the council would consider is what's presented in your packet.
Thank you, Mayor.
Councilmember Tilke.
Thanks, Mayor. Just a couple items. I know that we always talk about residents and what they pay, but businesses pay as well. And so I think I had asked for some more information on how those bills, I know we got a very quick slide that showed some different types of billing, but not what their actual bills would be impacted. But I'm wondering in the future if this council would like to maybe entertain that the Public Works Advisory Board has somebody representing the business community's input, not just the experts in the field. That might be helpful. I had a whole list of questions that I think we went over at a high level but didn't get into any specifics, so I'm assuming what that means to me is that needs to go to the communications team and maybe not be brought before the council this evening. Again, we went really fast past what that looks like on a bill, on your bill. So could you go back one more slide, Eric? Thanks. No. I thought that's what he said, so and then it went by real fast. But I think maybe, again, if the council doesn't want to talk about this tonight, that's fine. Perhaps it's part of education. But what I was hoping to hear tonight was an example of my bill. I'm just going to use my bill so that we could actually see what's happening, because I think that's what the residents want to hear is, how does it really impact me? Because before I say anything else, I appreciate everything, and I know this is what we need to do. So please don't think that I'm saying that we don't need to, thank you, that we don't need to do all of these things that you've talked about. I really believe it. I just think that we need to understand the impact to the everyday citizen and the everyday business when we go forward. So I just want to make sure, just for me in my bill, and I'm averaging. Before we raised rates last year, my bill, the highest I got was about $90. It stayed about the same. I have grass. I'm required to have grass in my front yard at least. And so when we added the bill last year, my bill, well, it went up to $180. Now it's at $150, and I don't do winter grass. So it's about $150. So that's a $60 increase last year. So that was, I believe, when you showed it, that was the 48% that we agreed to for the first year, and then 25% for next year. So, and this is what I don't understand. Am I doing 25% of the $60 or the $150? So if it's 25% of the increase, and I don't think it is, but let's say it, is it of the 150 or, I know, I'm just estimating. I know there's all these fees in there, but $60 was what my increase was. So if we're adding 25% in April this year, am I correct in that? For just water.
Just of the water portion.
Just water, yeah. Is it 25%?
25% of whatever the water portion of your bill is currently.
So not the $60 increase, but whatever your actual water portion is.
Okay.
Yeah.
So it's probably going to be a little more than the 25% of 60. So I'll just say, just for quick numbers, that'll be a $15 increase minimum if I don't water any more than I am with winter grass right now. Yeah, just winter grass. And then, and I'm still confused because I know it was one question I asked. Is it $29 for everybody, or is it now I'm in the top the next year, so I'm going to get $30 or $40?
We're all treated equally under the
Okay,
sewer bill, so it's a flat fee.
Okay, so another $21. So that's a 40, in April, I can expect a $44 minimum dollar increase in my bill. So from last April to this April, I'll be going from $90 to $194 in my lowest watering months. Did I do that? And I think it's more. So I'm not arguing that we need it. What I want to know, and I think what we're saying up here is when we communicate with residents, they need to know how it's really impacting them personally or businesses. So this is very average. And I know that we have a lot of apartments, let's say, or small. Mayor, I think you don't have grass. And so you have a smaller yard, and so your bill's probably a lot less than mine. But
yeah, mine went from 88. Well, are you talking your total bill, including sewer, garbage, everything? You're talking total, that's 150 total.
Yeah.
That's what Councilmember Kowalski and I were talking about.
Yeah.
Mine went from $88 to $110. I have no grass. I have all xeriscape landscaping. I have fake grass in my backyard. So total, it went from $88 to $110. $110.01. I just looked on my phone.
So I'm only bringing this up because I want us to be very, very transparent. All of the information that you've provided is very, very thoughtful, and it's very high level. But I think the everyday resident and the everyday business wants to know, okay, what does this mean for me? And I think the council that's going to be voting on that needs to understand that we've already approved the 25% increase in water, and now we'll add another $29 for this. And so I just want us to be transparent in that. And Eric, you know, I love when you present because I know I can trust everything that you say and what you put up there. I think I just want to look at it a little differently just so that the community understands. And I appreciate that you said it is $29. Just on the presentation, you might want to change that from estimated, if it is definitely $29, because that was confusing to me. That made me think that it wasn't $29.
Yeah. Thank you, Mayor and Councilmember Tilke. Thank you for those words. To address a few of your points, the last one first. When we have a finalized rate study, we can say it's $28.72 or whatever that number is. I've rounded them just for ease of presentation. We also every year develop the bill calculator so that our residents and our businesses can go on the bill calculator and look at what it is that their service levels are now, and then with the proposed changes, they can see what that would be in the future. We have always been able to do that in the months leading up between this notice of intent and the actual vote, because council has always narrowed it down to one option for us. If I'm reading things correctly right now, maybe that's not going to happen tonight, but so it will add a little bit more complexity into that for our customers, and we'll have to still present various options for them based on whichever choice council makes in February.
One of the questions we asked at the retreat was regarding the billing. Last time we said that it was going into effect in April, and we all, not you guys because you understood billing, but we didn't, that that meant that when you got your bill in April, the rates were in effect for March. So we just need to be real clear. Do you know what that is today?
Yes. The language we are going to try to use is that The bills in April will reflect the new rates on them.
Okay.
I think that hopefully makes that clear.
But for the water rates, it's a rate based on your usage. So whatever you used in March will be on your April bill, whenever that comes. If it's April 1st or April 2nd or April 3rd, it will be whatever you used in March. For the sewer rates, should they change, it will be a flat rate for everyone, and that won't go up because it's not based on usage.
That's correct.
Okay, thank you, I said that correctly.
So that would show up on your May bill.
It will show up on the April bill.
So still, oh. 'cause
The April bill
So you're
changes.
billing that forward, not.
Right.
Okay. All right, thank you.
It's a lot to digest. Councilmember Bongiovanni?
Thank you, Mayor. Eric, you mentioned these are going to be different pipe standards that we'll be purchasing. What were they again? How many years?
Can you say that again?
Yeah, you mentioned the new pipes that we will be installing possibly are different than the iron ones that we have now.
Yes.
How many years are they expected to last?
50. 50.
50?
Yeah. They pull a liner through. It's a really fun thing. We just did this actually along the Western Canal. They pull a liner through, they fill it with water, they heat cure it, and it stays inside of that pipe. And it allows the same flow to go through. And it's inert. It won't degrade. They're getting really good life cycles out of this technology.
Okay. Thank you.
Your idea of fun and my idea of fun are two
We
different
can crawl
things.
in there together. Come on.
Any other questions or comments for Eric at this time? And I think you heard that you weren't going to hear which way that these options were going to go, and I thought we discussed that at the retreat too, because two of us won't be here in February when this vote is made, so I don't think it would be fair for anybody to come to a consensus this evening and not know how your two new council members are going to move forward when you do come to this discussion at that point.
So Mayor, what I might suggest then is so that the council can have that option in February, that we notice with the all-cash option, with the understanding that we're still considering the phased cash bond mix. That allows the council to make that choice in February.
The all-cash option would be the higher option for the residents' perspective, from the residents' perspective of what they would see in their bills, so that's probably the safer way to move forward. Councilmember Torgerson?
I thought it was just a notice of an intent to increase, not by any number per se, but as this whole thing unravels, I'm just upset with the whole thing at this point. I'm upset with how much it is. The ductile iron was the standard, 20 years ago. Great. I'm a layman. Iron and waste don't mix. So to me, that was like, how did this occur? How did this become a standard? And we're asking an awful lot of people. Is there a way to extend this time to, not going to call it buy-off, but the education, the feedback, something to occur rather than this what I consider an extremely short timeline? Is there something we can do here? Because I'm not happy. I'm just leaving it at that. I'm really not happy. It's not that I'm not happy with you. I'm not happy with my back against a wall. I'm not happy with presenting people with yet another increase in things, and nobody has knowledge about it up to this point as far as the public. And I feel that there needs to be more time. I don't even feel good about saying, hey, we're considering an increase, because there's no information for anybody to look at. It's like, we're considering an increase, and we're going to get back to you on educating you a little bit and bringing you into the discussion. I feel that it's almost out of order. So why is our back against the wall to make this February 11th?
Well, there is a statutorily required timeframe that I probably haven't done enough foundational awareness on this topic for you. But we're required by statute that the rates cannot be increased within 30 days of that decision that the council makes. And so we also have to have 60 days before that when the council can do this notice of intent. Okay, so we have to have 60 then 30 more, then the rates can be in place. When we did when the budget was presented in May and June, the wastewater fund incorporated a rate increase at that time. And I believe that was explicitly shared at that time. Between then and October, when we presented this with the Public Works Advisory Board, we were refining, we were going through the various iterations of the budget. We were preparing the rate study. We were getting the consultant on board. Had we shared information at that point, we would have very little to share that other than information council already knew, which was that those funds needed an increase. We wouldn't have had really a dollar amount or a percentage to go on at that point. So our decision making is when we have that information available to share it. And that wasn't until late September, early October with the Public Works Advisory Board. And now when it feels like it isn't solidified, it's because we have not yet finalized the rate study. We were waiting for this evening's decision on which option council chose so that we could put that into the rate study. That is also statutorily required 60 days in advance of that, of the public hearing at which you will choose an option. So we have to present that. That's why we're asking for an option to be presented. We can publish a rate study with both, and it sounds like I will actually do that at this point, so that our residents and our businesses can go online and look at that, which has all the financial data that supports the needs and the financial data that supports the rates being the appropriate amount going forward into the future. So there's this long time frame where it felt like there probably, from your perspective, was not a lot going on. There was all of this background work going on to get us to the point where we had actual options to present to you this fall. Because the budget incorporated additional revenue this year, that's why we're targeting the April 1st date for implementation. And so everything just kind of works backwards from there. If that gets pushed off, even by a month, the rate revenue needed in this current fiscal year is more. It's the same amount, it's just now it's in 2 months rather than 3, which changes the rate calculation needs.
So this money was committed before we knew what we were really doing.
The budget was adopted
Yeah.
with that understanding that there was a rate revenue adjustment needed.
Eric, thank you. You've been doing a great job. Councilmember Buckley has a comment or a question.
Yes, actually I do. I want to go back to what I was asking earlier, because Eric, if you could reiterate what the statement that you said when you mentioned that you could make this in a certain way so that the council would have both options. So I'm a little bit confused in that, because in reading this, number 5 on the agenda, fees, consider a motion to direct staff to publish a notice of intention to increase rates and fees for wastewater, reclaimed water fees, and rates. But now, we discussed in the retreat the 2 different options. But from the way you said what the option was in order to give, how to say it and how to write it, to give council so that we had both options. It was my impression we have both options to vote on anyway. So can you clarify that a little bit?
Sure, Mayor, Councilmember Buckley. The notice of intent sets the highest amount that the council could adopt the rate increase in February. If you chose the phased cash bond option mix tonight, you would not have the option in February to select the all cash option, because that amount is higher than the phased option. So if you desire to leave yourself that option to choose in February, we would just notice with the all cash option and the phased mix option tonight, going forward.
Okay, well, I, as a council member, absolutely want to have both of those options. I can't speak for any of the other council members, but I'm quite surprised by that because I was not aware that we were going to make a decision on either one tonight. So, but thank you. And Eric, you've done an amazing job, and it's a lot of work and a lot of effort for you and your staff, and I really appreciate it. I want you to know that. I also want to say that, my job is to do the best thing for the residents and for, of course, our town of Gilbert. And I want to make sure that I have every option that, there will be some people that may want the lesser option, so that doesn't influx their payments every month. I don't like this. I don't like having to do this either. But again, I will reiterate what Councilmember Koprowski said, and this is our job. This is what we're here for. We have difficult decisions to make, but I don't want any of those options taken away from us that we can consider come February. So that's why I wanted to confirm this, and I thank you very much.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Let's go to Councilmember Koprowski. I should go to her first. I got it.
Councilmember Koprowski.
I just wanted to do a quick math exercise because I know that we are probably all thinking what happens if we delay the increase to our rates. And this, was discussed during the Public Works Advisory Board. And if this increase is delayed, let's say by 1 year, there's still a $230 million gap we're trying to bridge. So instead of going from $33 a month to the $62 a month, which is a $29 increase, if we delay it 1 year, it needs to be a $45 increase because of that 12 months we're losing. So just want to put that in perspective, that is another option we have considered, but there's such a big gap in the needs, and we're already bringing in less money than it's taking to operate our system right now because of the additional costs in chemicals and energy and things. So just wanted to explain that there were other options and questions, but it just gets worse and worse the more we delay.
Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Thank you, Mayor. Being an engineer, Councilmember Koprowski, I trust your math totally. It's kind of going where I was going to go to about any kind of delays. I want to thank you and Candace for your presentations. They were great, but I just want it known that I don't want to see a delay on this, but I need to see that public outreach. And I need to feel very comfortable about making this vote in February, that we did everything we possibly could to get the information out and to listen back from the citizens. I want to be able to make that vote in February and not be a no vote at all. So thank you, guys.
Vice Mayor Anderson.
The only concern that I have with attaching a number, a maximum that you were talking about, Eric, with this is that before there is one single public hearing, one single communication from digital, it'll be reported tomorrow morning that we are going to increase it by $29 or whatever it is. That's the way it'll be reported. And that concerns me. So I think your idea about the rate study for both is, like you said, you're probably going to have to do that.
Yeah, Mayor, Vice Mayor, there's no way around it. State law requires us to post what the maximum amount could be. And so we can include both because the maximum is included in one of the two. And folks will report what they will report.
Folks always report what they will report. And considering it doesn't say $29 anywhere on any of the stuff that we have in front of us, it gets even more confusing, I think. And they will report whatever they want to report, right? I would go with the all cash anyway, so that would be my choice, but I did not understand from the retreat that we would be expected to make this decision here tonight, even for the notice of intent. I thought the notice of intent was kick this baby off and we'll get moving forward, and then in February, the council would come back and make that decision. Then, I mean, I even said it to Councilmember Kaprowski when she talked about what her choice would be. I did not get that from that retreat at all that day. So just laying that out there, that the words are not matching what we're hearing or understanding as a council, because I know I've heard it from a few people. But I would just publish both. We know the all cash is higher. That could potentially be the increase, but we don't know what that increase is really going to look like yet. And hopefully that's what the press will report.
Mayor and council, my apologies. That is a failure of communication on my part. That you do still have the flexibility, though, going forward. We can push this decision down the road, and we have a way forward.
Thanks, Eric. You have done a great job tonight. You have taken all the hits from the dais tonight. I really appreciate it. And I, too, appreciate when you do presentations with us. Staff does a great job anyway, but Eric, you do a really good job. So nothing on you. And I do enjoy giving you a hard time at times, though. So thank you again. And you can sit down now.
Thank you.
And I will, I only have one slip on this item. Mr. Mark Thompson, he doesn't wish to speak, but he's against this and doesn't want us to increase fees after a tax increase on sale purchases, is what he wrote. So I wanted to make sure to get that into the record. I also had no comments online on any of the items this evening, so I'll close the public hearing, bring it back to the dais for discussion and/or motions. Anybody? Bueller?
I'll make a motion.
Okay.
To direct staff to publish a notice of intention to increase rates and fees for wastewater and reclaimed water fees and rates with a maximum rate increase in alignment with the all-cash option, but with a rate study that supports both the all-cash and the phased cash bond option. Set the public hearing date for February 11th, 2025, and approval of a wastewater fund contingency in the amount of $140,000 to support a traditional media and print educational campaign to inform the public of the rate increases.
I have a motion. Can I have a second?
I'll second that.
I have a motion by Councilmember Kaprowski, seconded by Councilmember Bongiovanni. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Nay. Motion passes 6-1 with Councilmember Torgerson dissenting. That concludes our public hearing portion of our agenda. Everybody's been up here for almost 3 hours. Does anybody want a break or just want to plug through? Break. We need a 5-minute break, please. We'll take a recess.
Check, 1, 2, 1, 2.
Okay, I'll go ahead and call this meeting back to order. Moving on to our consent calendar, passing it off to you, Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We're going to do things a little bit differently because there's been a request to discuss items 6, 7, 8, and 9. Staff has a short presentation, so hopefully we can keep them on consent. So we'll take that presentation first.
All right, Mayor and Council, thank you. I've got the first 2 slides. These are just some brief overview, but happy to get into more details as necessary. I'm Håkan Johansson, Finance Director. So let's see, item 6. This is a contract with WW Grainger Inc. This is what we might call a blanket contract, so it works for the entire town, all departments. This is a maximum not to spend more than $300,000. As when joining this cooperative contract that was competitively bid this year, it allows us to receive discounts that we would not otherwise receive from 5 to 32%. These are critical industrial items that are not found easily outside of this type of supply chain, and we are not required to use this as a vendor. So this allows us an option, and that is, it just allows us that option. No questions. Item 7, SMARSH. This is a funny word, but it allows us to be compliant. Oh, I apologize.
I didn't realize we were going to interrupt with that. All right, my question, my observation with this, and I would love to see something sent to me after the fact. Grainger is something I use in my business also. It is an absolute last possible use because Grainger is so, sorry, they'll probably sue me or something, so overpriced that unless it's something I absolutely positively need to have this very minute, I order it either off Amazon and get it a day later or, from a manufacturer. I haven't found anything competitive. 5 to 32% is nothing. I would like to see what's been done in retrospect. If this is, last line of defense, like we got to have this today or this fire truck goes down or, this, I get it. Yep. But other than that, to me, it is, we laugh about it. I mean, literally, it's like, no, unless nobody has it, we don't go there. So I was just concerned to see something that I know is not of good value, at least in my business. And I have that same business thing where I get 5 to 32% or some odd number, and it's still terrible.
No, thank you for your comments, Mayor, Councilmember Torgerson. I did pull some figures. So to give you some scope and scale of the type of work that we do here, $300,000, if you think of across general fund, all of the water fund, all of the wastewater fund, our capital projects team, that is a very minuscule dollar amount. Our typical spend with them is less than $300,000 a year across our entire organization. And what it tends to be is pumps, and it is that emergency item that we gotta have it as quick as we can. And Amazon doesn't carry the phalange, whatever item that we might need. Additionally, because we're a public or entity and not a private business, our procurement code requires us to go through some certain hoops and actually doesn't allow us to spend freely on Amazon the same way that some other organizations might be able to. And so this is preparing us in the future for flexibility, and it is something that we price, we compete on price. So,
Amazon being the worst example, because I actually
the point is made, though. Absolutely, yep.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. So back to SMARSH. This is a technology solution that allows us to be compliant with public records requests related to our mobile devices. And so this is a service that is required in order to remain compliant with those records and allows us access to and be able to search. And if there are more detailed questions, I can get our IT team up to respond more specifically. But
no, it's just to make sure that I was reading this right. And it's like when I get FOIA'd 51 times in a week, This is helping capture
This is a
that.
tool that helps us respond as we're required to by law. Yep.
Yeah, so that, for the public's understanding, our town emails can be pulled by IT, but now anything on our town phones can also be pulled by IT without having to ask us for the phones or go for phone records or something like that. The Smarsh does that.
All right, and I will pass this along.
Good evening, Mayor and council members. Susanna Struble, Town Engineer, and, oh, there we go. You made me a little nervous there. So we have an item on here, item number 8 on your agenda, is to add a sewer line improvement to the Melody and Pioneer Improvement Project as we were moving through to final design on this project. In looking at this a little further with the current emphasis or focus on the Northwest redevelopment area, that there was a recognition there was no sewer in this area, and we do believe that this may be an area that will move at some time in the future as that emphasis progresses, to have some redevelopment going in there, and sewer supply would need to be there. So the proposal before you this morning is a change order to allow our designer to go forward with the design of that sewer line at this point in time, so we can have it installed before the pavement goes down, so we don't have to cut that right away. There's a little extra in there as well that helps with any extra services for our internal staff to also be able to charge to the project. So CIP charges all of their efforts that they do towards the projects, and so there is an increase in contingency that would cover that as well with this agenda item.
That's exactly what I was going to ask. Why is there an extra 50,000 over and above? And you've answered it. Thank you.
And moving on to item number 9 before you tonight is a change order with Core Construction, who was our CMAR for this project. This is moving forward with about $165,000 to work through the final reconciliation on the GMP for this project. As we have moved through this project, there have been several items that have come about from a technology perspective that have somewhat extended the project timeline, required some additional security efforts, inclusive of some noise attenuation and some other items. And so this would then basically cover those costs that as we were progressing and having to keep that dispatch running and going, that we would like some authorization to move forward with. The second piece of this is the project management services that go along with the Barco system, which is a system that basically is the audio-visual system. It's the system that the dispatch needs to be able to see what's going on in the areas that they need to understand and be able to convey that information effectively. There was a lot of commissioning. This technology was advancing as we were putting it into the system. We haven't completely done that updates, but we did a lot of research and timing in that over the last several months to make sure that we put the right system in and that it was able to basically be deployed as quickly as possible, which will happen in January. So that's what this cost is for. Thank you, unless there's questions.
Thanks, Susanna. No, great presentation, and I think it reminds me of when we opened the public safety training facility and all the things that we needed to add in after we got in there and started using the building. It's the same kind of thing. You get a new house and you have to add things into it that you didn't think about beforehand.
Correct.
Yep,
Thank you.
Thank you.
Those are the only items we had on to pull off consent for discussion. So unless there's anything else, I'll make a motion to. Yeah, I will. I'll move that we approve the consent calendar, including items 6, 7, 8, 9, 9, capital A, 10, 11, and I'd like to move forward item 12, which Councilmember Bongiovanni, do you have that? Or does the mayor have that?
Yep, no, I have that.
Okay. You want to read that?
The mayor saved me. The mayor saved me on it. Item agenda number 12, a motion to appoint Paula Hatch and Jeffrey Wright to the Public Facilities Municipal Property Corporation as regular members with terms beginning January 2nd, 2025 and ending January 1st, 2028.
And item 13.
I have that one, Vice Mayor, that is to a motion to appoint Deborah Stapleton to the Fire and Police Public Safety Personnel Retirement System Local Pension Boards as a regular member with a term beginning December 3rd, 2024 and ending November 30th, 2028.
Looking for a second on the consent calendar? Moved and seconded, we approve the consent calendar.
All in favor?
Say aye.
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 Any opposed?
Councilman,
Aye.
She said aye.
aye.
That concludes the consent calendar, Mayor.
Thank you. Moving on to administrative items, we've just completed item 12 and 13. Moving on to item 14, council administration is consider acceptance of the budget report and contingency report for the first quarter of FY 2025. Does anyone have any questions, comments, discussion on that? Can I have a motion to approve? 14. 14.
14. I'll second that.
I have a motion by Councilmember Torgerson, seconded by Councilmember Tilke. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion passes 7-0. Moving on to item 15, council administration discussion and update from the Community Engagement Task Force. Councilmember Tilke.
Thank you, Mayor. Our next meeting is scheduled for December 9th, and that will be pulling all of our recommendations together to bring forward to the council study session on December, is that 17th? 17th. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Short and sweet tonight. Thank you. Moving to communications from citizens. Vice Mayor.
Thank you, Mayor. We value the participation of our community members in the robust exchange of ideas. However, it's essential that this discourse remains respectful and constructive, reflecting the professionalism expected in such forums. While we understand and appreciate the passion our community members bring to these sessions, we must remind everyone that clapping during the meeting is not acceptable. Also, playing of music or showing videos may subject the town to copyright infringement and is not allowed. When you're called up by name to the podium, please come up and state your name, your city of residence, and you'll be given the appropriate amount of time depending on if you donated time. First up tonight is Brendan Wood, and is Taylor Wood here also? Taylor's donating her 3 minutes, so it'll be a total of 6 minutes for Brendan.
Can you please turn on the microphone? Thank you.
Hello, I'm Brendan Wood. Thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening. I'm a lifelong resident of College Park Country Estates, one of Gilbert's original neighborhoods, established in 1972. I'm here today to request the council's help in saving the landscaping along the public right-of-way in our subdivision from removal by the Gilbert Street Department. This plan contradicts the certified arborist report, an existing landscape maintenance agreement approved by the town council, as well as key policies in the town's general plan and shade and streetscape master plan. The Gilbert Streets Department has notified homeowners that tree removals will begin December 16th, with the rest scheduled for removal by June 30th, 2027. Initially, the department justified the removals by declaring the trees hazardous before any arborist report was conducted. Our community requested a report, and on March 12, 2024, a certified arborist commissioned by the Streets Department conducted that the trees are in good health and pose a low risk. As such, the Street Department's continued push for tree removal is not supported by the professional risk assessment and damages trust between the town and citizens. College Park Country Estates is one of approximately 23 pre-1985 developments in Gilbert without a homeowners association or PKID to maintain the rights-of-way. Our neighborhood was established before these development standards were adopted, granting us vested rights. Maintenance has been funded through the Streets Department, which has ensured proper upkeep, including the landscaping. The town's general plan encourages the preservation of older neighborhoods. Policy 17 supports maintaining urban tree canopies. Policy 16 emphasizes protecting neighborhood quality and character. Policy 11 promotes mitigating the urban heat island effect using trees to reduce heat and improve air quality. Removing these trees directly undermines all of these policies. Our neighborhood is featured in the Shade and Streetscape Master Plan on page 16, highlighting the historic presence of mature trees. The plan notes that Riata Street has 67% shade coverage, but the Streets Department's plan to remove all the trees from the public right-of-way, reducing this to 0%. The Shade and Streetscape Master Plan aims to build a healthier, more livable community through strategic investment in maintenance and growth of the urban forest. Removing these trees contradicts this mission. In conclusion, I urge the council to stop the removal of the trees. The Streets Department's plan contradicts the town's policies on sustainability, preservation, and environmental health. Removing these trees would harm our neighborhood's aesthetic, environmental, and historical value. Preserving them aligns with the town goals and protects the long-term well-being of College Park Country Estates. I ask for your support in maintaining and protecting these trees, ensuring our historic neighborhood is preserved for future generations. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you, Brendan. Next is Rayanne Wood and Allison Hograff. Are you here? You're donating your time? So, Rayanne, 6 minutes.
Mayor and council members.
Rayanne, can you please pull the mic down to you? You're a little bit shorter.
I am a little bit shorter. All right, Mayor and council members, my name is Rayanne Wood. I'm here today with other neighbors to request the council's and the mayor's help in saving the trees and landscaping along the public right-of-way in our neighborhoods by the Streets Department. I moved into this neighborhood in 1995 with my husband and my 2 young kids. As you can see now, Brendan is not a young kid anymore. I've lived in that neighborhood for 30 years. It's an amazing neighborhood. There's not a lot like them in Gilbert. We have horses, chickens, ducks, goats, turtles, you name it, there's animals in there. We also have trees. We have a lot of trees in the neighborhood. Yesterday, I was looking out my kitchen window trying to decide what I would say to you today, and I noticed a Harris hawk fly into the neighbor's yard, landed on the fence, and then as I continued to watch, I noticed there was 4 Harris hawks flying around, landing in the trees. These Harris hawks, they don't live on Riata in the trees in jeopardy. However, it is part of their habitat. My adult son, Brendan, and his wife have moved back into his childhood home, and they're expecting their first child, which in turn is my first grandchild. Soon we'll be a 3-generation family living in this neighborhood. College Park Country Estates. Again, I've been there for 30 years. It saddens me that my granddaughter, it's going to be a girl, may not be able to see the beauty of the trees that we've enjoyed over the last 30 years. The trees and grass in our flooded, water-irrigated property provide a lot of shade and thus cooler temperatures. On any given day, our neighborhood is 5 to 8 degrees cooler than the surrounding Gilbert area. With this neighborhood being developed before the last land and community rules and regulations, I do not understand or agree with the town of Gilbert wanting to cut down the trees. Eucalyptus trees are all around Gilbert. Patterson Elementary is surrounded by eucalyptus trees. Boyce Thompson Arboretum has over 1,200 different types of eucalyptus trees, dating back to the 1920s. Thousands of visitors go there every year. So I don't understand how these trees could be considered an unsafe species, as well as the arborist report deemed them to be in fair to very good condition. Phase 2, which I call it Phase 2, but basically in 2027, they're proposing to coming in and cutting down the rest of the trees along Riata Street. In closing, I ask you to help save our trees, help save the shade in our neighborhood, save the cooler temperatures in our neighborhood, save the Harris Hawk's habitat, save my granddaughter's view and her play area. Please review all the requests and documents presented throughout tonight from my neighbors and my son. The Town and Landscape Department to find another way for the Town of Gilbert and the Landscape Department to save money on maintenance in order for us to save our trees in our neighborhood. Thank you very much. Appreciate your time.
Thank you. Next, Robert Bachhuber. To who? Rose Hograf? Okay.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor and council members, for the time. I understand that it's been a long, long day, and we've been talking about some unsavory topics. I came here today to support the community, as you've heard from Brendan and Rayanne, and I didn't plan on speaking, but recognizing, and actually I'm glad that I did put my piece of paper in to speak, because listening to all of you discuss the importance of listening to residents and what they have to say, it warmed my heart, frankly. And this should be a topic that would actually make the press proud and serve the council members to do something great and easy. It's saving the trees. So although I didn't write a lot of speech, I do want to say that and reiterate for the record that currently the trees are scheduled to be removed with no plan for restoration, and that's effective December 16th. That notice was not provided to the entire community. It was only provided to a few select houses in the neighborhood. So when we're talking about public education and residents and communication, that hasn't been happening in this instance. And the information that Brendan has identified with the further arborist report indicating that these trees are in good condition, if not great condition, and they respectfully have a low risk to the residents. And then there is an existing land maintenance agreement that the city of Gilbert is servicing. And more importantly, the general plan and shade of the streetscape master plan. I have page 16, and if any of you are able to get it, you can get your own copy. It's published. And the part that we're talking about is right here, this little area. That is the street of Riata. So when Brendan says that the shade coverage is representing 67% and it'll go to 0, this is public record, and this is what the plan was based on. And I just can't believe we aren't doing more to save the trees. I'd like to read specifically and quote from what that Gilbert Shade and Streetscape Master Plan was developed to create a healthier, more livable community through strategic investment in maintenance and growth of the urban forest and engineered shade. In Arizona, and shade structures, trees and shade structures are critical assets of our infrastructure and require long-term strategy and implementation. These trees, which now, and I'm sorry I don't have the benefit of using the screen, but this is what this street looks like. These trees have been there, as you've heard, for decades. We're not replacing these trees anytime soon. It would be a crying shame. Not to mention, this street is the very street that is represented right here on this plan. So I come before you to remind you that the plan was set, and it was used this neighborhood this iconic historic neighborhood as a basis for the plan. So what I'd like to ask, we go back to use the right words, is to request that the scheduled date of December 16th be canceled. And I would ask that you all remain committed to fulfilling the goals and having a healthier, livable neighborhood, supporting the plan. I would like to recommend that there be further community meetings specifically on this topic, and I am requesting that the comments heard tonight will result in studying this matter further as opposed to allowing the trees to be cut down. Long live the trees. I got some smiles, I'm glad. Any questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I think Mary Ann Weeks, I think she left, from what I saw. Is Mary Ann here? I didn't think so. Next up is Melanie Rodriguez.
Mayor, Council, thank you for having us and having this opportunity. My neighbors have expressed the need to, or their desire to keep the trees. My passion is public service. I've been a resident of Gilbert for 20 years in this neighborhood. Wow, my voice is not as good as Ms. Connors, I'm sure. What I want to do is urge you to persuade town manager and the streets department to put a stay on the December 16th cutting down of the trees. Again, my passion is public service. I want to have the transparency and the public hearing, the public comment period available to my neighbors. I am one of the 5, I believe it was 5, that received the letter informing us that the trees would be cut down. I took that letter to my neighbors. I wanted them to know what was available and what wasn't available. If we're going to have this conversation, we need to have it in the open where the other 50 neighbors, there's 55 lots. The other 50 neighbors need to have the opportunity to be heard. If it is an improvement district, this neighborhood came together to do that for our irrigation. This neighborhood has protected each other and taken care of each other over the years. I don't know what the outcome's going to be of the trees, but we need to have the opportunity to have the neighborhood come together as a community and work with the town to come to solutions rather than just a decision. I don't know if I can give any more of my time to any one of my neighbors or in any other way provide comment to you all to help persuade staying that decision on December 16th. Thank you.
Thank you. Stacy Laval, you're here, aren't you? You're giving your time to Steve? Okay.
All right, hello, good to see you guys. Sorry I missed you a couple weeks ago. I'll be hit or miss here. But I have to say, keep their trees, my God, it's in your paperwork. Quit contradicting yourself in everything you write. Your policies and procedures that he violates constantly. He doesn't get held accountable. His leadership team doesn't get held accountable. Keep their trees. It's not that hard. It's a simple answer. All right? I'm coming to you because I want to remind you guys. It was over 2 years ago that I got fired from this organization. I got fired because I said the word black coffee. And a lot of people will say, well, it's how you responded to the write-up. Bottom line is I said black coffee and I got written up. Black coffee. Because a black guy and a white guy did a skit over coffee. And the white guy happened to be my engineer, and the Office of Digital Government didn't like his political stance, so they chased him out of here. The black guy, he shouldn't have gotten any trouble anyway, didn't get anything. So I just want to remind you, I was asked a long time ago, what would it take? I said, accountability. I will not stop until that man right there is held accountable for his lack of leadership. And you guys are seeing it. You just voted for a budget and you approved a tax increase on the citizens of at least $29 or maybe $8 with a bond for sewer, that you had no idea that you were voting on that for a tax increase. At least that's the way I looked at what happened tonight. All right. The other thing was that gentleman did a great presentation. You're right. It was a very good presentation. I think it was 2012. Since 2012, they've been pushing this off under his leadership since 2012. And it's been 8 years since they ran a camera down that sewer line. I wouldn't have got that information if you didn't make me sit here all night, by the way. But 8 years under his leadership. And now all of a sudden it's going to cost the citizens millions of dollars. The citizens, okay? Two things I got to get to. I forgot to mention, DE&I is being canceled by Walmart. Southwest Airlines got it because it's illegal for their illegal hiring practices. But Nathan Williams is still here, and Bob Badgett still works here, and Rob Duggan still works here, and they hired people illegally based on race and gender. And I know he says he has a legal report about it, but I've shot holes through that all day long, and I sent that stuff to you guys. Yet no accountability for that. However, it's crumbling. So back to the infrastructure stuff, back to the sewer and everything else, okay? I have a great solution for your problem. You have a $98 million fire budget for a guy that's building bathrooms because he has one transgender firefighter. How about we get a citizens advisory board? I'd be more than happy to partake in that. I know the fire department pretty well. We could even invite Dana Birchman back to sit on it because she'll have a different view than me. And we can start advising on, really, do we need to take these stations that were built 20 years ago to be 100-year stations with 4 bays for build-out and knock down and do remodeling at millions of dollars when you can take that millions of dollars and you can give it to the wastewater and the sewer people? That would save us taxpayers a lot of money. So why is it that you always come after the citizens for money and you don't look internally at some of the flaws in your budget? Just a really fair question, I think. So I really would like an answer on the Citizens Advisory Board for the Station 4 remodeling, because you need to bring a hazmat team in there. Station 4 is in a residential area, not a lot of hazmat needs. You're going to have hazmat needs throughout your city because you're going to have natural gas at houses. But you could at least put your hazmat unit somewhere where there's an industrial place, where there's maybe a little bit more high risk there. I don't know, it seems like it's kind of, they want to say centrally located, but yet they've had it way out east for years. I don't know what the justification is, but I'd sure like to see a little bit more, say, transparency to the public, to the citizens who are getting stuck with these bills about every little decision that is made on every department, really. But beginning with that and the fire department, all over one transgender. And the last thing I'm going to leave you with, and I'll get going, is your fire chief, from what I understand, had a required all-women's meeting. So every woman in the fire department was required to be at that meeting. They got paid overtime if they were off duty. If they were on duty, they were pulled off a truck. And by the way, they should get paid that. But then he told them it was an all-women's meeting, and then HR showed up. And HR had 2 women sitting in there. So my question is, I can do the public records request. It just takes months for your staff to get it to me because I know they get a lot of public records requests. But my question is, why is he having a meeting with all the women? And what is he going to do? And what are those, if those women spoke their minds, are they now on a list to be removed from the fire department because say they don't feel comfortable because a man's using a woman's restroom? I'd just be curious if somebody up there wants to do a little research and maybe give me some answers on that meeting, or maybe save me the time from putting in a public records request. Because I think it's kind of odd that happened. And I'll have some more information, some new stuff that I'm digging into, but it takes me a while because I do have other things. But I am doing some research, and I will come back with some more information from the other public record request information I have. Thank you for your time. And by the way, have a Merry Christmas.
Thank you. That concludes the communications from citizens. Patrick, would it be worthwhile to agendize this issue on the trees in some way? We did.
Yeah, Mayor, Vice Mayor, members of the council, we'll get you information on that. We did have an executive session on that issue earlier this year, but we'll get some information for you and follow up.
Yes. Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Vice Mayor. Moving on to our next item on our agenda, it's future meetings. The council may discuss whether to place an item on an agenda, a future agenda. Right now, all that's on the future agenda items is meet and confer follow-up discussion, scheduling into 2025. Next is communications report from the town manager. Patrick, I can't see you behind the poinsettia. I know you're there.
Thank you, Mayor, members of the council. Only one item tonight, and something that we were well aware of. Last week, we lost a member of our Gilbert firefighter family, Joseph Counts. Obviously, we're all heartbroken by the passage of Joey. He was a 3-year veteran of the Gilbert Fire and Rescue Department, graduated from our academy in 2122, graduated in December of 21. He was beloved by any crew he worked with and his academy brothers and sisters. He was active in the department and participated as a health fitness instructor and adjunct instructor for our academies and training division. Joey was also active in the community by helping coach and develop young football players. Thoughts and prayers are with Joey's family and the GFRD family as they grieve and prepare to honor Joey with honor the service Joey provided to our community. And you should have some information on his memorial service, which will be this Saturday, but he will be sincerely missed, and we grieve for the entire family and their loss.
Thank you, Patrick. Moving on to report from council. Any council members have anything to report this evening? Because you always have something written for you. Councilmember Bongiovanni.
Anyone else want to go? Okay, I'll go. Riparian After Dark. The Riparian Preserve comes alive with the holiday glow. Stroll around the walkways at the Riparian Atwater Ranch with thousands of holiday lights and displays at every turn. Local food and drinks vendors. Oh man, my phone just shut off. Hang on. Local food and drinks vendors will be on site for select nights, serving delicious holiday treats. The year's event takes place at 5:30 to 8:30 p.m. each night from December 13th to 22nd. Tickets are on sale now. Sorry, that was just hard to follow up on what you said, Patrick.
He's all choked up. Councilmember Torgerson.
I'm supposed to follow, but wait, there's more. Gilbert is encouraging visitors heading to the Heritage District this holiday season to send a message of warmth to others via postcard. The Hello from Heritage District postcard campaign will feature 5 postcard mailing stations set up inside participating downtown businesses, with each station offering a different postcard of Heritage District locales that visitors can fill out and then drop in the mailbox for special delivery. More information about the postcards and their locations is available in the Town of Gilbert website newsroom. I'm not sure if anyone else is covering this, but if not, it'd be a good one to cover. After nearly a year of renovations, we're thrilled to announce the grand reopening of Water Tower Plaza just in time for the holidays. Join us for our beloved Gilbert Water Tower holiday lighting on December 16th from 6 to 8:30 p.m. at the newly renovated plaza, with plenty of activities for kids and adults. And there's no more from me.
Thank you. Councilmember Buckley.
I have, on behalf of the Office of Economic Development, I am pleased to give you the following updates. Small Business Season Campaign launch. The Office of Economic Development launched the Shop Small, Celebrate Big holiday shopping campaign. The campaign kicked off on Small Business Saturday, November 30th, 2024. The campaign continues Gilbert's tradition of spotlighting Gilbert-based retailers and encouraging the community to support local businesses. Gilbert residents can find local businesses this holiday season at discovergilbert.com/shop Gilbert. Harvest in the Heritage District post report. This year's Harvest in the Heritage District fall celebration was a success, with increases in and out of town visitation, online engagement, and merchant participation. The event featured 14 participating merchants and 22 highlighted events, both town and partner hosts, creating a lively and engaging atmosphere for attendees. And with that, back to you, Mayor.
Thank you. Anyone else? Then I will move on to comments from the mayor. My schedule, June's up tonight, huh, June? I've been posting my schedule every meeting to show what I've been doing out in the community. Doesn't include any meetings that I do with staff, but one of the things that I wanted to highlight was on November 19th, Vice Mayor Anderson and I did a tour of businesses on the property of Phoenix Mesa Gateway, just so the public understands. Gilbert's one of the owners of Phoenix Mesa Gateway, and so businesses going around the perimeter of that airport are very important to all of us here in the region, even though the airport sits in the city of Mesa. Joan, if you could go to my first photo, we were able to tour, we toured the Gulfstream building, which is 250,000 square feet and had 9 Gulfstream jets inside of it. You see us in front of one. It was quite the sight to see. Then we moved over to Zinergy, which is a company that's under construction. And then we moved into the brand new Virgin Galactic building that's shown there in the center with the design behind us on the wall that is the, I guess, the origin of spaceships. The Virgin Galactic building over there at Phoenix Mesa Gateway will be building spaceships that people will be able to launch into space. People will be able to go up every 3 days in a spaceship from the ones that will be built here in East Mesa. So it's very exciting, the things that are going on out there at Phoenix Mesa Gateway. On November 23rd, we all enjoyed the Gilbert Days Parade, and my family joined me for my final parade. That's my husband Mark with my granddog Scout, my daughter Jen, and my grandson, and myself with my dog Tammy Jo. It was a great day to be out. There was a beautiful morning to be out for the parade, considering last year we got pouring rain on Gilbert Days Parade. We had a great time, and I thank the residents for all of the hugs and selfies and everything that we got to do that day. And for Gilbert Fire and Rescue, I wanted to report that they're doing rides with Santa this no, not doing rides with Santa because of the memorial for the firefighter. So my information is outdated at this point. Yes, thank you, Chief, for that. On another note, though, on Saturday, and the reason I will not be able to be at the memorial is because I will be in Oahu for the 83rd anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor and the USS Arizona that claimed 1,177 sailors and Marines' lives. And the ship's Gilbert is the host town for the USS Arizona submarine that's currently under construction, SSN 803, and the ship's sponsor, Nikki Stratton, is the keynote speaker that day in Oahu at the 83rd ceremony. It's the first time that they have had a woman keynote speaker and the first time that they've had the granddaughter of an actual survivor from the USS Arizona and from Pearl Harbor Day. So I will be there, and my apologies, Chief, that I won't be able to be at the memorial, and our thoughts and prayers go out to the Counts family and all of you at Gilbert Fire and Rescue. So thank you. Our thoughts are with the family. And that concludes everything that I have on my agenda, so I would take a motion to adjourn. And a second? All in favor? Aye. That was Vice Mayor and Councilmember Tilke. Motion passes. Meeting adjourned.